Welcome to the CEO of Destiny podcast, where you will find the tools to fulfill the purpose of your generation and wildly succeed in the marketplace. And now your host, Andre J. Benjamin.
Can you think of any either teachers, instructors, or role models that saw basically this dormant gold that was in you in some form and was able to call it out in your formative years? Was there ever any instructors that you that you recognized and was like, man, they actually see more in me than what I'm giving off? Because like you said, there was a lot of external pressures and, misinterpretations, and just like you said, the sinfulness and the brokenness of people to make fun of, and all this stupid stuff that people do they're very cruel in school. It's just real. But I feel like that's the real gladiator school. So I don't know about all this. I think it was the comedian Chris Rock that said, if we get rid of all the bullies, there won't be any companies, because they become these arch villains or whatever. So can you think of any instructors that were able to call out gold in you?
Yeah. So, even till this day, my third grade and fourth grade teachers, they still follow my stuff. Like they comment on my Instagram stuff. It's so cool to see how many years ago was that? I was 8, now I'm 31, 23 years later. They're still following the story. And so they, I know that they both, let me cough. My third grade teacher had put me in fifth grade math. And so so she knew that I was gifted in that way. Even when I was 8 years old, little kid, and she didn't have to do that. She could just been like, Mrs. Breen. Yeah, she's awesome.
Shout out Mrs. Breen.
And then my fourth grade teacher, she has been an awesome role model to me, meaning though I was the stupid kid that would get into fights and get in trouble, I remember her pulling me aside saying, hey, you can't do this, that type of stuff. She was very long suffering with me. She was very patient and dealt with me really well. There were other teachers along the way that gave me opportunities as far as putting me in allowing me to take the gifted test, and then I aced it, and then I would get into the gifted classes. I don't think that any of the other ones really did a ton as far as just knowing that this is they didn't have any sort of conviction around me in particular, except for my third and fourth grade teachers did. And then also in undergrad, my physics teacher, why am I blanking on his name? I remember his face. He was such a, literally if I read the name, I'm like, oh, literally that was his name. Just a brain burp, what do you want to call it? He taught me my physics teacher taught me the importance of effective communication. Sounds so random, but it was so odd. I remember coming to him after class, and I was like, dude, in 11th grade, I had a C in physics, but now in his class, I had a 103, and I was crushing it. And it was, really just 2 or 3 years later, from when I was 16 and I took physics versus when I was 19 and I took physics. So 3 years later, from high school versus college. In college, obviously I wanted to apply myself more, but I was like, but you're also just a better teacher. What makes you such a good teacher? And he's like, he loves the puzzle of being able to get these complex concepts to become attractive enough for people to want to be or to feel incentivized to actually retain it. And so many kids in his classes, his tests were not easy because there were some kids who were just straight flunking because they just, no matter what you would do, they wouldn't give a crap. But he was able to get even the C and B students to letter grade up because they really retained the concepts, and he taught us how to think in physics. And so I think that even him, giving me he introduced me to other teachers that he thought would be helpful and all of that. And I think the difference is I was one of the few students who actually appreciated the art of what he was doing. When you think about physics and teaching physics, you don't think about art at all, but the art of his communication ability. And by the way, he's not he's not a high EQ person. It's funny because he's like a robot. He's like a robot that's trying to solve, okay, how do I get these humans to understand what I'm saying? And he's very masterful at it. And one of my favorite, Mr. Thompson, why am I forgetting his name? Amazing at what he did. So all I have to say, those are the three teachers that really stood out to me because of their own unique, different sort of things, if that makes sense.
You didn't call the fourth grade teacher out. You called two of them out. What's the fourth grade
Mrs. Colley. Yeah.
All right, Mrs. Colley. Shout out Mrs. Colley. Yeah. Can you talk a bit about, I love it. Can you talk a bit about what your definition of the metaverse? Because, it's to be determined in many people's eyes, but how would you say the metaverse is?
Yeah, I think just in simple terms, it's just like a 3D internet, right? It's something where, you and I are doing video conferencing right now, but in a metaverse world, we put on our glasses or our headset, visor, whatever you want to call it, and we would be sitting across a table together, as opposed to this two-dimensional video screen thing. The reason why people get the Zoom fatigue is because like my brain is trained to see humans and understand how they are in 3D. But right now, both my eyeballs are seeing the same image, and it's like almost trying to create two sides to your face, but I can't really because we're on it. And so you do that for 8 hours a day, you're frying your brain. Whereas in VR, it's pretty mind blowing to people when they first find this out. But in VR, there's no Zoom fatigue because it just feels like real life. It's what your brain was created to do or to consume. And so VR, the only fatigue you get right now is the weight of the headset on your neck. So like for me, like I wrestled, and so they make sure that you work out your neck and stuff like that. I wrestled in high school, and so for me, it doesn't affect me. So I could legit, it sounds crazy, but I could spend 8 to 10 hours a day with a VR headset on. Not straight, obviously, like 2 to 4 hour sessions at a time. Take it off, put it back on, go take a break, whatever. But once the stuff becomes glasses, I mean, 1/3 of our world wears glasses already, and so it's like it's not going to be any different. So I think that when we talk about this sort of metaverse type world, it's going to just be the next evolution of the internet, right? Because the internet right now, go back to the late 90s, early 2000s, you had Web 1, which was really just reading stuff off the internet, information, billboards, whatever online. Web 2 was Facebook, YouTube, where you're not only reading, but you're also writing. And then Web 3, which is reading, writing, and then having actual digital ownership, right? And so in a metaverse world where things like digital assets, digital currency, virtual real estate, those things are going to become so essential. Sounds weird right now, but in 5 or 10 years, it's not going to sound weird anymore because you're already going to be using it. So I think that people kind of obviously like make jokes of, let's feed these kids to the metaverse, and like you don't even know what you're talking about. Like, what does that even mean? It's like people just use it some weird buzzword jargon thing, and it's like it's gonna be the next generation of internet or of our internet, man.
So can you since you hit on it, it's clearly in the pathway of questions that I'm gonna ask, but let's talk a little bit about a lot of people's reluctance, resistance, skepticism. A lot of people, I even asked people, I was just kind of in a teasing way after everybody had been on Zoom and a lockdown. I kept coming out and telling everybody, like, I would go just even in the grocery checkout line and say, are you ready to just be like fully in? Are you ready to get your avatar? And they're like, no, thank you. After being locked down, people were like, no. So it's just regular people. And I was kind of taking a little side poll, just trying to hype up and being like, they're saying we're going to be fully in. Are you ready? And they would be like, no, I want to see people. I'm ready to see my family. So it's just, I want to hear about your vantage point of, hearing people. Because there's many views of how people see it could go, and it depends on open, close. People are, which version is it going to be? Is it going to be Ready Player One, or is it going to be something that is more everybody's playing a role to shape how it is?
I mean, I think the thing is like because we don't live multiple lifetimes, we don't have as much pattern recognition as we probably should. Meaning, like, you probably heard that phrase that history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it rhymes, right? And so we've seen these patterns before. If you just read a little bit of history in regards to in the early 1900s, where newspapers were a thing that like everyone was getting, it's like, okay, well, this person won't get their face out of the newspaper. And it's like, this technology is, crushing our next generation. And it's like, you fast forward to the gaming, the Sega Genesis or the GameCube or the desktop computer, whatever. These kids, they have their screens, they're glued to their screens. And then you have the iPhone, same thing, and then now VR or whatever. But it's funny because think about how the older generation actually adopts the same thing. They're just lagged behind. So do you know of your grandparents that probably read the newspaper? Do you know of your parents who probably use computers now? Do you know of your generation who uses smartphones now and your kids who are now using VR? Well, all of that's going to level up soon in the next generation anyway. And so all that to say, like, people can always be intimidated, resistant, whatever. to all of this, but they're going to end up adopting it anyway. And so the reason why that happens is because all of these tech giants are financially incentivized to figure out how do we build a product that people do adopt and do love. Like if people say, oh yeah, I'm never going to use that thing. If Facebook takes note and Apple takes note and they make sure that if you're saying that now, okay, well, what version of this can I build so that you do adopt it? And people don't realize that more than they think, they're actually a product of the environment, meaning, so I don't know, let's say 25 years ago, before there was a Facebook, right? Or say 20 years ago, when MySpace and Friendster first came out, I'm sure a bunch of parents are like, why are you wasting your time on that thing? And then Facebook came out and my parents would say, yo, get off of that thing. Fast forward to today, my mom uses Facebook way more than I ever did. I log into Facebook maybe once every 2-3 weeks. My mom uses it every single day, and she uses WhatsApp every single day. Both of those are owned by Zuckerberg. So it's funny because, again, like, we can be resistant to it like my mom was 20 years ago. But again, those tech giants are financially incentivized to figure out how to create a metaverse that is compelling, because if Facebook doesn't figure it out, Apple will, and Facebook doesn't want Apple to. Facebook wants to figure it out first. Likewise, if Apple doesn't figure it out, Facebook will, and Apple doesn't want Facebook to. So Apple's going to. So they are financially incentivized to compete to figure out how do we get even more user engagement, because all of them believe deep down that a more immersive version of this Zoom meeting is going to be way more successful than just Zoom. Zoom is not going to be the way that people are going to use everything.
So what is exciting about, so talk about Immersed and kind of also talk about what's exciting about.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Do us a favor. If this was useful in any way for you, please go to iTunes and leave us a review. Reviews will allow others to easily discover the podcast. If you'd like more information and to receive a free download, Rediscover Your Destiny, go to ceoofdestiny.com. Thanks again, and tune in next time.